on here?
Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse and to a Warehouse interview. Tonight I'd like to welcome David Myhr to the show. He was in the band the Merrymakers. They've put out several fantastic albums in the past. He has a new single out called Summer, 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 a new album on the way. We talk Beatles, we talk Jellyfish, we talk Andy Sturmer. Let's do it. David Myhr, here we go.
We serve solos with a side of swagger. Extra loud on request. Grant's Rock Warehouse.
Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse and to another Warehouse interview. Ladies and gentlemen, today I am joined by Swedish singer-songwriter, power pop craftsman, David Myhr. And I do mean a power pop craftsman. He is best known as the frontman of the cult Swedish band the Merrymakers. They have a classic album, Bubblegum, that we have played on listening parties. We've played them on the Power Pop listening party. And if you remember, that was in collaboration with Jellyfish's Andy Sturmer. We love Jellyfish on this channel. Anyway, David is a craftsman, a power pop craftsman, but he's here in the warehouse today, and he's got his first new solo music in 5 years, the sun-soaked single, Summer, Summer, Summer. We're going to talk about that. David, nice to see you. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you very much. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. I'm great.
Anyway, so David, thanks for coming. I'm so excited because I am an admirer of your work. I think, well, I don't want to dwell on the Merrymaker stuff yet, but I love all that stuff. And I do want to congratulate you on the new single. What made this the right time or moment to return with a single after 5 years?
Well, it's a good question. I did the mathematics. I'm working quite slow when it comes to my own record career. With the Merrymakers, we only ever made 2 albums, and as a solo artist, I've only made 2, one in 2012 and one in 2018. So I thought, okay, that's my pace. The next one should come in 2024 then, based on that. But then the pandemic came, I became a father at 50, a lot of things happened, and it took a little longer than I first hoped. But finally, I got around to having enough tracks to release it, and I got excited, and here I am.
It's fantastic. I'm so glad you're back. How has becoming a father affected your songwriting? And during this time in between, are you one of those artists that is constantly writing?
Well, on the first question,
how does everything work for you, David?
Now it
I want to know how it works.
A more and more tricky question. How does everything work? I will tell you. Well, in my case, as a songwriter, I describe myself as a lazy songwriter. I don't go to work every day because I have a day job, I have a daughter, okay. I have other things I do. But sometimes I long to sit down at the piano or with a guitar, and I just go to the piano and say, is there a melody that I can find here today? And I just improvise chords and melodies and sing a little bit and hum a little bit. And sometimes I stumble on an idea that I think, woo, that has something extra, and I record it to a voice memo, and I keep working on it for weeks. And once I've decided to record it, the hard work begins, which is to make the arrangement, the production, getting the musicians, mix, master, write lyrics, which is a headache. So that way of working, I have always done it. I get inspired by seeing an instrument, and I go there and I want to churn out a melody, and that's what happens. But I'm not doing it as often as I should, because I think there's more music that could have come out of me through the years. But on the other hand, I cherish the ideas that I have so much that I work hard on them to sound right in the end. So I guess it's a balance there.
No, 100%. So I'm going to assume by that statement that you're not coming up with lyrics first. The music comes first. I mean, does a chorus pop into your head, or how does the songwriting process begin for you? In this certain situation, did you just come up with a chorus, or what was the inspiration?
Yeah, in this particular song, the first single from the new album that's called Summer, 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 as you said, it was a funny little incident. I was just opening the door to our house, and I just came to think about summer, summer, summer. It was just like that, both melody and lyrics, that little chorus hook. And I thought, can it be that easy? Can it just can this become a song? What would a verse sound that would build up to this? So I started by the piano, knowing I wanted to get to the chorus that I already had in my head. So it was kind of working backwards. That's actually a good way to try to write songs, to begin with the important part first, to have a title to work from, and then just sing that title and see, is this a chorus? Okay, then work backwards afterwards. So that's what happened in this particular case, and it wasn't the most genius idea ever, maybe summer, 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 but I thought I sent it to my co-writer Bill Demain in Nashville saying, do you hear potential in this? And yeah, I love it. It's a great summer song. I'll write some lyrics to it. And off we went.
So how does that collaboration work with Bill? You've worked with him before on Lucky Day. Has the dynamic changed? And you get an idea, you send it to him. How does that collaboration work since he's in Nashville?
Yeah, I mean, the first time we wrote together, it was on a co-writing trip I made back in, I think it was in 2016 or something. And I went to his house. We had this booked co-writing session, and we didn't know each other beforehand. And he had sat and prepared a little idea that we then developed to the song Room to Grow that we both were happy with. And since then we kind of know each other in theory. So it has been easier for me to, given the fact that I'm here and he is in the States, I'm here in Sweden, I can send an email saying, hey, Bill, would you like to have a go at yet one more melody of mine? And nowadays it has become very divided, specifically that I send a melody to him and he sends a lyric back in the kind of Elton John, Bernie Taupin way of working. Although I send the melody first as opposed to Bernie Taupin sending the lyrics first. But Bill is a great melodicist as well, but I love writing melodies and I love getting help on the lyrical department. So for me, it's a dream. It's like, finally, all my life I've been searching for my own Bernie Taupin, and here he is. Bill Demain.
I was gonna say you're the Elton John in the duo.
Yeah,
okay.
or the Benny Andersson of ABBA, because he since the 60s he's been writing so much wonderful music. And I don't think almost ever he wrote any piece of lyric. And I mean, I don't have anything against writing lyrics. It's just that if it goes faster and becomes much better, I'm all for the end result. So why should I insist on writing lyrics when I struggle with it?
Right. Now, this track kind of has it's a lovely laid back 70s West Coast feel. I hear Beach Boys influences. When you were a kid in Sweden, what was it that you heard when you were a kid? Like when I was a kid, the Beatles opened up my whole world. And I thought it was like one of those moments, David, where the clouds part, the waters part. Did you have one of those moments when you were a kid that changed your whole world with a band or an artist?
Yeah, I know I'm not the only one, and neither are you. I mean, we are lots of people through the generations that have had this is it called epiphany?
I would say it's an epiphany.
With the Beatles, and they weren't the first big influence on me. I remember listening to the Grease soundtrack with John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John when I was like 8 or 9. I thought that was super cool. I loved rock and roll. And I heard some ABBA in the 70s that I also liked, of course, being Sweden, everything, Chiquitita and stuff like that. But then after John Lennon died and this wave of Beatles music swept over the world, I was kind of swept with that wave and became a Beatlemaniac in my teens in the 80s when everybody of my classmates were listening to either synth music or heavy metal. I was like, Rubber Soul. and from there...
That's exactly what I was doing, David. But I got turned on to the Beatles when I was like 10.
Yeah.
When I was flipping through the neighbor's 45s. And I pulled out a picture sleeve and it was I Want to Hold Your Hand or She Loves You. They had both of them. And I looked at these guys and I'm looking at them and wow, these guys are kind of cool looking. Because my parents, they weren't listening to anything like this.
Yeah, no.
They grew up in the 40s. They like Benny Goodman. They like, swing, stuff like that. So any popular music from the 60s was Well, we never played that in our house when I was growing up. So the fact that I was over at a neighbor's house and pulled out that 45 just based on the photo 5 years after they had broken up and thinking that, wow, these guys look cool. I want to go hear this. That's
Yeah.
how it all worked out. But yeah, you were taken with the Beatles bug. Yeah, I get
And
it.
I also had elder brothers. This was in the 70s when I was a kid. They played Pink Floyd, Cat Stevens, David Bowie, Neil Young, and all that kind of stuff that kind of also became a part of my world. So because I was the youngest of the four, quite a lot younger than them. So that's why I became kind of old-fashioned in my taste already at 10 years of age.
But still, see, I was an only child. I'm envious because you did have the older siblings.
Yeah.
You could go in there and play their records or whatever and get turned on to stuff that, the first thing I ever heard were the Beatles. Now, that might be a good thing. I'm going to take it as a good thing.
I think so. It could be
I
much
didn't have
worse.
anything to compare it to,
No, I mean I sometimes quote Tom Petty saying that I still think the Beatles made the greatest music ever, and I will carry that into my grave. And he's not the only one. We are a lot of people who think so, and I don't find any reason. Oh, sorry for the balloons coming up here.
Oh, that's right. I can make balloons coming up. I can make balloons come up.
Celebrating the Beatles.
Well, I'm just curious, based on that, how do you think that I know this is a tangent, but we do tangents here in the warehouse. How do you look at I guess I'm going to talk Sweden, and I don't know what the climate is over there as far as, do you think that the Beatles are one of those artists that are just going to continue on, or do you think just going to disappear? I always wondered about that. I mean, how are the Beatles still looked at over there in Sweden?
Well, I guess it's like everywhere that Beatles are something that people take for granted. It's a bit like having air to breathe. It's like the
Yeah.
Beatles are always there, and they might not be the most hip and happening thing talking about at certain points in media, but every once in a while people come back to, well, it all began with the Beatles, and Ozzy
Yeah.
Osbourne is a Beatles fan, and Benny Anderson is a Beatles fan, and Bono is, and
Yeah.
whoever you pick from the pop world, Taylor Swift, everyone, Foo Fighters, everyone will always point to the Beatles being kind of the pinnacle of everything. And I think people talk more about the Beatles now than maybe 10 or 20 years ago. I don't know. There's always a reason to celebrate, or a film that comes out, or I don't see any ending to it as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I'm sure you saw the Get Back film.
Of course, yeah.
And I feel like I sat there and I got to see it in the theater projected. I don't know if you got to see it in a projected,
Yeah.
but it takes me right back to when I was a kid. And to
Yeah.
see all that footage who knew that there was all that footage out there? I think it was absolutely fantastic. And the job doing the transfers and the remix, it was just, ugh.
Well, you see that's what I mean, that there will always be new stuff come, and also we live in 2026, and Paul McCartney just released a great album, and Stones are coming out with a new one. It's
Yeah,
a bit
they're still doing
surprising,
it.
to say the
I was
least.
kind of impressed with the Stones tracks that I've heard. Um, I don't
But I
think it
also
was
want
too
to
bad.
I also want to point out that when I talk about the Beatles, they are not the only thing that I listen to. There's lots of music that has come afterwards that have worked in the same tradition, with like the whole history of power pop. I love a lot of music, but I don't listen to much music that doesn't have its roots in the Beatles. So
Hmm.
if I listen to Tom Petty, or Crowded House, or ELO, or Jeff Lynne, or Jellyfish, or the Rembrandts, or Delamitri, or I can keep naming stuff in my record collection that I love, but it all kind of began with the Beatles.
Well, I'm just curious, since you mentioned Jellyfish, how did the collaboration with Andy Sturmer come about with the Bubblegum album?
Yes, you said it right. Some people call it bubble gum, and then the pun is lost.
But how did that collaboration come about? Because I think we're talking, what year are we talking again? That was Jellyfish was
Well, they released their albums in like 89 or 93,
right.
90 or 93, something like that. The first, there are only two albums, and we had a single in Sweden that was called Andrew's Store already in 1992, and somehow Andy Sturmer got hold of that, and when we were looking them up at a concert here in Stockholm backstage, Andy said, "Oh, you're the guys with Andrew's Store. What? You know our song? Yeah, yeah, yeah. My mom even likes your music better than mine," he said. So we were kind of flabbergasted. Is that the word?
Yeah.
Uh, and
Yes.
then we kind of lost touch with him, and the years went by, and we had worked really hard on our debut album, No Sleep Till Famous, that came out in '95. And then suddenly an email popped in when email was quite a new thing. "Hi, it's Andy Jelly. Can I get your music here in San Francisco?" And we thought someone was, fooling us or something like that. But
Yeah.
turned out it was him, and we started to correspond. And we talked about the album, but also that we had ideas for a new album. And he said himself in an email, we should discuss the possibilities of working together. So we got the record company excited by that, Virgin Japan, Virgin Sweden, because they were also Jellyfish fans. So it was like we were all in this together to bring Andy over to Sweden. And he did come. He had only ever worked with like Black Crowes after Jellyfish, and then us, out of all bands in the world, except for some Japanese artists. So for us, it was like, what's going on here? And we went to see him in Oakland. We presented our songs. He helped us out with some musical parts, and we co-wrote a little bit, and he played drums on the whole album, and it was a fantastic experience. He was much more normal than we could ever have imagined, and I mean, just a great guy and such a genius. He was like our biggest hero. I mean, apart from legends like Patti Lynn, Beatles, he was like the current artist that we looked up to the most of all in the world when it comes to songwriting, singing, drumming. And we got him to do songwriting, production, and drumming on our album. I didn't get him to sing, though. When he instructed me how to sing our song April's Fool, he sat there, "David, sing like this. She packed in January." And I thought, oh my God, that's his voice. Why don't you sing? "No, David, it's your album."
Oh, it'd been fantastic though if he could have done some backgrounds on it though.
I know, yeah.
It would have been great. But that's all right. Hey, the fact that he was involved with that, oh, absolutely brilliant stuff. I saw Jellyfish twice back in the day on the debut album, and I saw him on the Spilt Milk tour. The Spilt Milk tour, they were playing at a small bar in Columbus, Ohio, and they were on a flatbed of a truck.
Yeah.
And I just remember that they were playing, and I was a big fan, but no one really gave him much time of day. It just seemed very odd. I was like, don't you people know the brilliance of this band?
Well, that's the story of our life, isn't it? That
I know.
we understand something that the rest of the world hasn't understood yet. But I sometimes you bump into people who, oh, Jellyfish, and it's like, well, that's the best ever, and it's like for those who understand it, it's just brilliance, completely brilliant.
Let's talk Ian Hornal.
Yeah.
Sang background vocals and on this track, and I guess he was rehearsing for the ELO farewell tour. How did that connection happen?
Well, that's a funny story as well. It kind of began when I met Graham Goldman when he came to Sweden to be interviewed by Björn from ABBA about songwriting, and being a program director at a university program in music creation, I thought I'd better ask him if he can come to our school too. And I can make an interview about songwriting with him, with Graham Goldman from 10cc, who wrote Bus Stop for the Hollies and, all that, Herman's, No Milk Today, blah, blah, blah. He accepted to come to our school, and he accepted what we call an honorary fellow award. So I kind of got to know Graham by taking him in the car from the airport to our school and interviewing him and even playing with him, which is online, by the way, fantastic experience. And I knew that 10cc is touring, and I was invited to their concert in Stockholm. And their current lead singer on most of the tracks, which Eric Stewart sang, is Ian Hornal. And I had heard Ian's name being recommended to me. David, you should check out this artist. You guys should, you would understand each other. And so there was a combination of having him recommended as something to listen to, but also meeting in conjunction to this concert that when Graham invited us. So I got to meet him, and we exchanged records. We had a few beers, and we didn't have a problem finding topics to talk about Jeff Lynne and about about music, about love of music. And so then when it came to this song, I thought, what if I should ask Ian to see if he wants to add some background vocals? And he loved the track, and he made some enormously Beach Boy-esque background vocals. And the funny thing that you referred to was the fact that he was actually right in the process of rehearsing for what would become the very last gigs of Jeff Lynne's ELO, where he sings backing vocals. So they were rehearsing daytime, and in the evenings he went back to the hotel room and sang on my song. So we were joking that it was actually Jeff Lynne who paid the studio time.
So for this single, though, is that how everything pretty much worked? You just shared files and everybody has like their own studios in their homes?
A little bit like that. Yeah.
Bit? A lot of people are doing that nowadays.
I know. I call it ranking a record by mail order.
That's pretty much what it is.
It's kind of true, but the first thing, I go with my guitar to Andreas Dahlbeck, who is a Swedish producer and drummer. I go to his studio, present the song. He helps me to find the structure, the key, the tempo, the groove. And then he bangs in the drums to my rough guitar and my rough lead vocal. So what we had was basically, okay, here's the drums, and here's a guide vocal, here's a guide guitar. Now, what's the next step? And then I got Frankie Siragusa involved, who is based in LA and a enormously talented songwriter, producer, musician. And I said, have a go at this, Frankie. See what you hear. See what you can do. And he came back with a zip file full of tracks. That was like 45 tracks. That could be bass. I mean, I'm talking generally about this album now. It could be bass guitars, electric guitars, acoustic guitars, organs, mellotrons, synthesizers, background vocals, shakers, tambourines. So it was like Christmas Eve for me and Andreas, who were the actual producers, to see, okay, let's see what he came up with for this song. And it was like, wow, oops. Oh, did he do that? Did he do that? And from there we could, pick and choose what we wanted to keep. And then, all right, so next step now, David, do a proper guitar, do a proper piano. Let's get a brass section in. Let's get some strings or whatever. And it was done like that. So there was never a full band playing anything on the record. But we were building up to that sound, of course.
Well, you've collaborated with Anders for years. What makes your creative partnership so effective?
Just to make sure there's no confusion, Anders was my bandmate in the Merrymakers, but this is Andreas.
Right.
Swedish.
Oh, sorry, I probably pronounced it wrong. Sorry.
Yeah, but just to clarify, and this guy Andreas Dahlbeck, he's just an inspiring guy to be with. He doesn't see any problems. He's very open musically, and he's not a power pop guy. He's not a Beatles guy per se. He does sing, a songwriter. He does more traditional rock and lots of genres. But he's just a easygoing guy to work with. And he kind of, for me, recording a song is something very dramatic. And I think of all the things that can go wrong and all the things that can become very bad. And he just, David, let's just do a take and see what happens. Let's go from there. Let's do this. Let's do that. And he's just making me, be creative, and he helps me in every way. So, and he did it on the first solo album. So I came back on the second album when I was supposed to record with Brad Jones in Nashville, which is another producer I just love and I'm happy to have worked with. I brought Andreas with me to Nashville as a kind of safety net to kind of, if something goes wrong, at least we're two that can fight for doing it right. But Brad and him worked very well together as well. So he's been involved in all three albums.
Yeah, how did Frankie get involved with this?
It was because I had met him when I was in California doing what we called a Melody and Madness tour. Linus of Hollywood, Chris Price, and we formed a little trio and had a drummer called Benjamin LeCourt backing us up. And we made a little tour where we played each other's songs and took turns fronting, which was a great experience. And then on that tour, I was introduced to Frankie Siragusa, and I just loved his albums with Lennon-McCartney songs and Harrison songs that the Beatles gave away that he made covers of, which ultimately I also sing a track on, Sour Milk Sea, the George Harrison song. So I had big respect for him. He was a nice guy, and I asked him about his influences. And when he said his influences were Jellyfish and the Merrymakers, I thought, maybe I should work with that guy at some point.
Check that box. All right, that might work. Check.
Yeah, Beatles, Jellyfish, and Merrymakers. Yeah, I think those were three of his influences, and I thought, what can go wrong? I love his albums. He's a nice guy. He has the right influences. So that's how he started. I just asked. And same thing with Brad Jones. He also contributed with some help on the songwriting on this new album and played some bass on a couple of tracks. And yeah, Christian Phillips is another guy who's an amazing singer that contributed with some background vocals. So yeah.
Wow. Amazing.
Great people helping out.
Well, the Merrymakers were one of those bands that had huge success in Japan. You've sold over 100,000 records.
Yeah.
Why do you think that the Merrymakers resonated so strongly with the Japanese audiences? I'm just curious.
Well, I wish I knew. First of all, huge. For me, 100,000 was huge. In Swedish standards, it's great and all that. Of course, in Japan, a local artist that sells a lot could sell millions. So I'm humble in that sense. But for us, it was a big break. I sometimes kid the Merrymakers. I sometimes joke that the Merrymakers were active 20 years, and we had one autumn that it went well for us.
Yeah.
But it was great. It was life-changing in a way, because we finally saw that someone actually likes this. I think it was a combination of, as always, luck and timing and some kind of talent. But I think it was the right moment. Swedish music was hip and happening. There was a music export wave going on, and power pop at that point was a little bit upcoming. And we had a big record company behind us who believed in it, and were kind of getting it to the radio shows. And yeah, I don't know. It was a combination of finding the right song and marketing and having a good timing. I think if you asked, they were always talking about melancholic melodies and great choruses and big riffs, and I don't know. It's always difficult to boil down what's the ingredients for a success. And we had troubles in following it, because when we came with new songs, they wanted it to sound like that first radio hit that we have, Monument of Me. We need another Monument of Me. Okay, but we can't write the same song twice. So it kind of... But it's a relation with Japan that I still have vivid and fond memories of. And I was recently there with my family, and I'm able to go to a couple of small clubs and entertain a small group of people who have been around since the 90s and followed me as an artist. And that is possible for me is mind-blowing.
Were you signed by the Japanese label?
It was complicated.
How did that work? Yeah, how did that work?
It started with us being signed when we made Andrew Store with a cool Swedish label called Stockholm Records. But it was a time when we were 4 singers in the band, and we had no kind of direction on our sound, so they dropped us. Then we got signed by a small record company who had a studio in Stockholm, and we did everything ourselves. They only let us use their studio, but suddenly they owned the recording and the publishing. And we said, we need to find a way to get this out in Japan, because I was reading in the Swedish papers that Swedish pop is popular in Japan, especially 60s inspired bands from the northern Sweden. And I thought, that's us. What's going wrong here? And suddenly, from some strange, the strange thing happened that Andy Sturmer, as we talked about earlier, contacted us and said, you guys should target Japan. Yeah, I know, I said, but who should we contact? well, you should contact this person. And suddenly it turned out to be the same person that I was a colleague to, because I was then working as a music publisher. So I knew about one person in the whole of Japan, and my biggest hero, directed me to the same person. So I sent it to her. She brought it to the label there, and they licensed it from our record label. And then for the second album, when Andy came in, we managed to switch to Virgin Japan and Sweden in kind of a joint venture. It was very complicated, and we understood everything about contracts we shouldn't have signed and all that I'm now teaching my students.
But I will say this, that Bubble Gun came out in 99 on Big Deal Records in the States. And here in the States, it came out as a 2 CD set. Second disc had 5 bonus tracks from the previous record, No Sleep Till Famous. And I thought that there were was the whole record remixed for the States or just certain tracks? And I'm just curious why it was remixed.
The thing was that Peter, we were three main members, or 3 actual members, when we did the 2 albums, and we always brought in drummers or bass players when we played live. So we were 3 frontmen, and Peter, the third guy, he left the band when we were about to release it in the States. So Anders and I, we didn't want to present ourselves as the band that is about to dissolve. So we kind of pretended that we were a duo and became a duo. So we kind of erased Peter on the front cover, and we re-sang his lead vocals on the songs that he sang, just to present ourselves as a well-functioning band. It was a bit like they did in Soviet Union when they took away the pictures of all the leaders that they didn't want to have on the photos. But it was just adjusting to reality, because Peter didn't want to do it anymore, and we had to kind of we need to give this a chance. So the only thing that was remixed was just that we put the new vocal on 4 songs or something like that.
Yeah, like Troubled Times, I think, had the US remix.
Well, you're right about that. That was remixed just because it was picked out as a single, and we thought maybe we can have a amazing mixing guy on this, and I don't know how different it sounds. I think it sounds a little bit better, but it was just,
I was just curious why it was all done. Now you've totally cleared that up for me.
Yeah.
Because my go-to is the Japanese CD. I have the US CD, but I just was always I always wondered about it.
There was also an Australian version where we added the cover song that we had recorded with Andy Sturmer, Somebody Made For Me by Emmett Rhodes. Andy suggested the 2 cover songs to record, and we loved them both. One was Julie Don't Live Here Anymore by ELO, and the other one was Somebody Made For Me by Emmett Rhodes. And we did record it, but we never finished it at the time until we licensed the album to a label in Australia, and we added that song to Bubblegum. So
well,
David,
I'm gonna have to write.
I think it's online streaming.
Is it? I'm gonna have to write it down.
Yeah. We really love that song. And later I got to know Chris Price, who worked with Emmett Rhodes on his very last album. And when I came to the States, Chris was preparing a surprise for me to meet Emmett Rhodes. So he called the house of Emmett Rhodes while obviously he was still alive.
Yeah.
And the guy who shared rooms or house with said, hello. Hey, can you ask Emmett if he would like to come and meet this Swedish artist? We're going to have lunch. And then Emmett said, I've already eaten. So he didn't come. So I missed the opportunity to have lunch with Emmett Rhodes by this.
Yeah, well, he was kind of reclusive, but
yeah.
So yeah, probably during this time, he probably wasn't so receptive to that. So how have you balanced your life and music? You're teaching as a senior lecturer, you're running your own studio. How has all this influenced your whole creative process? You've been doing this for 30 years.
Yeah, I mean, I've never had the luck or fortune to be able to write and music and being an artist full time. Economically, it doesn't work for me like for so many other people as well. So I've always been kind of balancing work with creative things. But the jobs I've applied for have always been about music and teaching music and meeting young and hungry students who wants to make music. So it's kind of the same world. And then apart from the teaching and program directing, I also do some commercial jingle work. I write songs I help a company that make commercials for the radio, spots, jingles. So I have some songs that people here in Sweden know very well, but they have no idea it's me. And they are corny, cheesy songs, of course, made just to sell a product. And through the years, I've been doing that for 20 years too, but only occasionally. But sometimes I get a little extra money from that I can use to go to Andreas Dahlbeck. Can we record in your studio for one day? And it kind of evens out. It's kind of, in the end, I don't earn anything from all my extra work, but I have the luxury to every now and then, every 5 years, make a proper record with great people involved, with real studios, real mixing engineers, real mastering engineers, Air Studios London, 19-piece string sessions player. I'm a big spender in that sense, but I worked hard for those extra money.
So this is the first single that has been released.
Yeah.
What can people expect now? Third solo album?
Yeah.
What are you at in the process there?
Yeah, I mean, it's all recorded and done, and we're just preparing the actual product. So there's going to come out a new single in the summer here in July called Take a Run at the Sun, only weeks away. And once the summer is over and the fall begins, there will be a third single, and there will be the LP, CD, the full-length album. So that's what people can expect. And Summer, Summer, Summer is just a warm-up. It's just a taster. It's not like the big song. The big song comes in the fall. And who knows what the big song is? You will find, I think people who listen to the album will probably find different favorites. I even got a song on the album that sounds like Bill Demain's quote said. I quote Bill Demain saying that it sounded like a song from a Fred Astaire film from 1938. So if I sounded old-fashioned before, like songs came out in 75 or 68, now I'm taking it even a step further. But it's in the McCartney fashion. You know how he can do his granny music every now and then, and I thought, I'll do the same. Who cares?
Worked well for him. Why not you?
Exactly.
So you just played some shows in Tokyo while you were in Japan, on the 13th and 20th? How did those performances go?
Tokyo and Osaka. I think they went down very well. They were low key in the sense that I cannot afford to bring a full band, and it's not in a big club or anything. But the solo acoustic show, and I had some guest appearances, both Scott Simons from the States, but also Japanese people, a band called Tate Fuji, and a guy called Osamu Satoyama from the Mayflowers. So they were backing me up on the big hits, Monument of Me, and so it was lots of fun, and the people who were there seemed to enjoy it a lot, including the new songs, I must admit.
So what's next? More live shows for you?
Yeah, I'm not like touring. I would love to. If there was a demand for it, I'll put a band together any day. But the reality is that gigs with my own music are few and far between. I have a great show online on YouTube from 2018 that I call Made in PTO that you can find on YouTube and with subtitles and everything. It's a proper show with a full band. I'm hoping to do something similar at the end of September here in Stockholm, on the 30th of September in a place called Debaser Nova. And I'm going to make a small show in my former hometown PTO at the end of July. But at the moment, it's just vacation and preparing the single releases and prepping everything for the big album release in the fall.
All right, fantastic. Is there anything else about any tracks, recording process, anything in your headspace that we haven't touched on you'd like to share before we wrap this up?
Well, only thing that I can think of, we talked about the process and all these great collaborators, and I'm sure I forgot to mention one or two including Jimmy Lagnefors, who is a Swedish guy that I worked with before on the song Spellbound that we once wrote intending to sound like ELO. He and I wrote a song on the album called Finally that I think is a follow-up to Yesterday, he said humbly. But the good news is that we recorded a little bit more than we needed. So my hope, not wanting to go too much in advance, but my hope is that I'm coming into a kind of a flow here, so it won't take 6 years until the next one. But fingers crossed, who knows? Everything can happen.
Just real quick, do you know the artist Blue?
Oh, yeah. He actually wrote the lyrics for Jealous Sun, which was the opening track from my album Lucky Day.
Okay. Are you familiar with the project that he did called LEO?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
On which Andy Sturmer sings.
It all comes back to Andy Sturmer.
I know.
But that's all that, ELO type. I don't even know what you would call it, a tribute, but they're all originals. I think that album is fantastic.
I think it's. I know. We listen to it a lot, and it's really, really good. He's a great talent. And having tried the same thing with Spellbound, it's kind of a challenge to write something that is pastiche, but not too much pastiche that you can actually take the song seriously. And I think with the LEO album, that was the case. It wasn't just copying everything. It was in the spirit of ELO. And of course, the fact that Andy suddenly bursts out singing after 20 years of silence or whatever it was amazing.
I've got one more thing, David, I just wanted to see if you're aware of, but this is right up your alley if you are aware of it or maybe not. But Graham Goldman worked on this project. Andrew Gold put out a project called The Fraternal Order of Love. Okay. Now, what it is, and you're familiar with the Dukes of Stratosphere, of course.
Oh, yeah, like the ecstasy thing.
It's basically what he's done. Now, if you know Andrew Gold, he wrote the song Lonely Boy back in the 70s, played a lot with Linda Ronstadt. And of course, he had Wax, the project with, Graham Goldman. He put out a record, I think it got re-released, but it's called The Fraternal Order of Love.
Wow.
You might want to go just check it out because I think you would really like it. And Graham's playing on it as well. I think that they do a track that was a Wax track on there as well, but it's all very psychedelic.
Yeah.
And look for the Fraternal Order of Love. David, I would not steer you wrong. I think you would really like it.
Well, thank you so much for the recommendation. It sounds like just the type of nerdiness that I'm looking for. And I want to pay it back by mentioning this album that I talked about earlier. I know it's kind of foggy now, but I will. The Frankie Siragusa album that I talked about is called Goodbye, My Love, Lost Songs of the Beatles Covered and Rediscovered. And I'm not promoting it because of the fact that I'm singing on one of the songs. I'm promoting it because it's just a fantastic reimagination of the songs that the Beatles gave away, recorded and produced in an extremely innovative way with great singers and me.
All right.
Even Roger Manning, speaking of Jellyfish, is on it. So check it out.
Oh, I can't remember. Just Andy by that time they'd been broken up. I don't think Andy and Roger really have any kind of connectivity anymore.
No.
Unfortunately, because geez, that collaboration. We could talk Jellyfish all day, David.
I know. I've done it since 1990, and I'm happy to do it.
I know. I'd love all this stuff.
I'm trying to coin them or name them the second best band ever. I'm basing it on the fact that they never made any bad songs. They are just killers. All songs they ever made. And I love the Beatles most of all. But if I need to pick the second best band ever, I'll pick Jellyfish any day.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, we can wrap this up. Ladies and gentlemen, David Myhr. He got a new single out, Summer, Summer, Summer. Check it out. The new album is on the way. I will put links down below. Give David some love. Fantastic stuff. And everybody here that watches this show, you know we've played Merrymakers, we've played Jellyfish, and you know kind of the stuff that I'm into by this point. So please give David some love. Check out the links. Check out the single. There'll be more down the road. David, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. It was a great pleasure talking to someone who knows so much. I'm very impressed about the level here. We started here and then we went there, I think. Impressive.
I appreciate it. Appreciate the
Thank you so
kind
much
words.
for your interest and the support.
All right, everybody. So I will say this. If you have not become a Patreon, please check out the links down below if you'd like to support the channel that way. We also have a Ko-fi. Buy us a pint or a cup of coffee. We are just here trying to turn you on to music. The Warehouse is always open. And I just want to thank David again for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.